And I've got an exciting guest today here, my good friend Michael Ursu.
Thank you.
And and how are you today, Mike?
I'm doing good. I'm patiently waiting until the new year begins, so that I can begin my new resolutions and get ready for 2021 because we all made it right through 2020, so
Yeah,
there's nowhere to go but up is what I'm hoping for.
for sure. And if you're listening on the podcast right now, what you can't see is that Mike has his home studio behind him, which I think is absolutely fantastic
Thank
because
you.
this shows the power of taking your career into your own hands, finding the opportunities to be able to manage your own I guess opportunities as well. And we're going to be talking about some of those topics from expert advice from Mike. He's been doing voice acting work and all sorts of great things, so hence the studio.
Yes.
And to get started, Mike, can you share a little bit about, your starting journey into, I guess, entertainment? Like, what was that like before you even, built your first, mini studio and all of that?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Queens, and I came out to college here. I went to Occidental College in Eagle Rock for music composition. But then after college, I found myself in a band with some LA musicians who were also actors, and they said, "Hey, why don't you give acting a shot?" So my first gig on set was an extra in like a comedy club scene, and all I had to do was pretend to laugh for $50 for I think it was 3 hours, and I got fed lunch, and I was like, "Wow, this pays better than being a musician," at least to
Yeah.
me in LA,
Uh-huh.
because in LA it's really hard to with the music scene here. That's a different story though, but. So that's pretty much how I got my leg into the world of TV and film, and ever since then, I've always been a go-getter, and I audited a few acting classes here and there, and everyone's always talking about, oh, my manager this, my agent that. I'm like, that's interesting because I just learned from people on set, oh, what casting sites do I use? And I do it myself. So to me, that was always weird, the idea of having somebody else manage my career at this point, when I can take things into my own hands. Anyway, so that's
Yeah.
pretty much how I got started into that whole thing.
Well, thanks for giving that, because that gives some insight. It doesn't mean that you have to like start with, you get into acting, but you didn't necessarily have to start in that field, with that music history, and you just finding the opportunities as you came along the way. Is that like how it came about, or?
Absolutely, yeah. I think music definitely helped acting. In my class, I took this Zoom class a few months ago because I'm like, well, I have to keep up the acting skills because, you have to keep up the acting skills. And in class, we were learning, uh, we learned so much, and um, we learned that music is very helpful with the rhythm and timing and stuff like that. And if you think about like the anacrusis, like the beat before the actual song happens, that happens in acting too, So the two are almost like music was a nice segue into acting. That's for sure. And
Mhm.
I just love to perform. So, the fact that I could get paid to perform in front of just a small group of people, like performing live on film you know, and on camera is definitely different than performing on a stage. But I was like, wow, this is so much easier than having to prep, 12, 16 songs for an audience that you can't even pull in a city like this.
Yeah,
So I just found a
especially
lot more.
now.
Yeah, especially now. Oh my God, especially now. Well, I mean, even with acting too, but they have a lot of UG stuff, UGC stuff nowadays, which stands for user generated content. So now they're going to pay you the same actor rate, right? But then now they're going to charge you. They're going to pay you the same actor rate, but they want you to be the director, and they want you to be the stylist, and they want you to be the lighting person, etc. So there are still gigs out there, but I mean, I definitely love the community of acting more than music, which always felt a little bit competitive to me.
Right on. And I love that you brought that up because, with acting with a band, you have that element of, okay, you're the band, and then you try to get those gigs. But as an actor, it's like everybody's got to fill all those roles. You got actors that can fill the director role if you're working together on a project, or, working as a team as opposed to bands, they record by them with themselves. Is that the area that you were in, or?
Yeah, I mean a little bit. What's really interesting is that both my fellow bandmates were fairly accomplished actors while we were in the band. Unfortunately, the band broke up, but being in a band, you kind of know who the director is because it makes itself obvious. It's usually the singer or maybe the guitarist is like the director, and then everyone else falls into their own roles. So I think being in a band definitely helped with me, jumping to being on a set. And especially in a band where I learned, okay, I'll step up to be a leader sometimes, and then it's like, okay, I'll step up to be support sometimes. So it's interchangeable. And if you have that open mind where you can be interchangeable, you can be a leader sometimes, and you can also step back and let someone else take the charge. It's all beneficial towards that. So
Very nice. And earlier you mentioned this idea, and I liked it. This idea of managing your career and that area.
yeah,
So what and also I really like that you brought up this idea of where you can find information, in the streets when you're in the game. You
yeah,
mentioned like being on set and actually hearing from firsthand experience like what to do. So there's this whole concept of being actually like doing the work and then doing your research that way versus just listening to like someone tell you about it.
yeah.
So that's great. And what would you say is like something that you had to discover by just doing the research, by connecting with people, as opposed to just listening to someone give you advice all day long? Well,
I will tell you this. I think I've come to learn that most people don't really know what they're doing. And I think once you start to realize that, it really frees you up and it opens you up to all the possibilities because I didn't know that I was doing the right path. I mean, I thought I I have high expectations of myself. So when I was, self-managing, when I am self-managing my career, I'm like, well, is this right? What if is what I'm doing right? But it always felt right to me, and I've booked jobs. I usually book jobs like once, twice a month, all because I spend an hour a day on casting sites, applying and doing self tapes. That's even more time. But I just kind of took my initiative. I took the initiative in my own hands, which I found very weird with other LA actors I met because they always talked about stories with their managers and agents. I'm like, well, I book all my own gigs. Like I keep all my own money, and transitioning into voice acting, I'm looking for representation now, but I feel like I feel like nowadays in the new acting world, you have to just do the work you have to do a lot of work before you find the right person who's going to manage or rep your career. It's almost like that with music too. Like you have to have the 10,000 fans already before a manager looks at you. Because, I mean, if they didn't have the gatekeeping, and what I mean by that is on certain casting sites, they managers and agents can see a list that you can't. So if they didn't have that, then I don't know why I would want to work with them because I'm perfectly fine auditioning myself and applying and doing research and updating my own headshots and updating my resume all the time. I'm perfectly fine doing that myself. So I don't know. I feel like it's being pushed now, If you're starting out actor or creative person, you just have to do a lot of legwork in the beginning. You have to do a lot. Like I'm talking like maybe like 3 to 5 years of it, really, before you should find somebody because no manager or agent's going to really want to pull from the small pond unless you have something really incredible. But those are outliers. So I really do believe that you have to do the legwork for the
yeah.
first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And I think on the other side, when you were talking about the outliers, we like to think that outliers are like somehow overnight successes, but those outliers also happen to often be, people that have put in the legwork over, a certain amount
Exactly.
of years.
Exactly. I love this show, American Horror Story, and this one breakout actor, Cody Fern. I'm like, man, this guy's really good. I like his acting, and I immediately look up the IMDb of any actor I even remotely like. I'm like, if I feel that I like them a little bit, I will look them up immediately because I want to know their story. I want to know how long it took them. And this guy was 30, and he's been acting for 10 years in Australia, and he finally got his big break on a big show like American Horror Story with Ryan Murphy. So, that seemed like an overnight success to me because I had never seen the guy, but he'd been doing his, legwork, working in theaters and booking shorts and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's gonna take a lot of time. I think the one problem that a lot of Hollywood actors have is that they think it's gonna happen immediately, but it's kind of like a really big marathon. Like, you know, I'm imagining my head a 3 to 4 decade marathon here, because is it going to be work when we're 60, 70? It might to our creaky bones, but I'm going to still love acting at that age, right? So
Yeah.
why do I need to rush into a big thing? Why do I need to rush into fame right now? I can take things at my own pace. I can manage my own career. Um, yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Also, and speaking of creaky bones, I was on a set the other day, and there was an entire set of like 20 background actors who had to fill a scene for I think it was like an older crowd. So
Uh-huh.
there's definitely projects, and I think when we reach a point when we'll be able to have and find those types of opportunities as they become more popular online or whatever.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah. I've been on a few sets actually since August, and some sets have been safer than others, and some sets haven't been worth it. But I was just so like desperate for, actor communication and just interacting with people. When I moved into voice acting, lucratively that keeps me propped up. But spiritually, like it's just me. I do the voice for 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 10, and that's it. And I message the client, they like it, good, they pay me, and that's about it. But I miss the human interaction part of acting. That's what really drew me into that community.
Yeah, and I earlier you brought up this point about booking these few jobs a month, and
Yeah.
I think most people who aren't familiar with the industry, they'll go in and they'll be like, "What a few jobs?" But that takes a lot of legwork. Can you share a little? You've got a studio behind you. Can you share just a
Yeah.
little bit of like what that take? Paint the picture for anybody that's listening. The amount of effort that means to actually book those jobs.
Sure. So, like I said before, if you're starting out acting, you got to drop almost like a grand because you're starting a business, right? Because you're an actor. Acting is a business. You are your business. You are your brand. Whatever you look like, that's your business. So you got to drop in probably a grand to start with the headshots and applying to all the casting sites. And then you got to go on those casting sites like an hour and a half a day, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I mean, that's not even that much. People work like, 40-hour jobs a week. The sad thing about acting though is that you can't put that much time into it because the opportunities aren't there yet starting out. But if you put as much time as you can into it, casting yourself and doing the self tapes, it's going to start to pay off. I've been doing this for about 4 to 5 years, and only in my fourth year did I become SAG eligible. Um, so I mean, that was a lot of like I've been rejected thousands of times. I don't even remember when I click submit on a project. I forget it immediately because I can't deal with that baggage in my head. Oh, did I get this project? Did I get that project? I forget it. And then a friend's like, oh, so did you get the Nerf project? I'm like, the what? Ah, damn, you reminded me. So it's kind of like it's 4 to 5 years of just like a headstrong attitude and just doing it every day, man. And I know when I don't do it every day because then the emails stop. So you can always work harder than the other person here in this town. And casting sites have made that a really like a possibility, and it's possible to sustain yourself now, especially during this pandemic, with just acting or voice acting. Are you gonna, be in the green as a starting actor? Not yet. But are you going to be able to break even? It's absolutely possible, and that's all before even getting like a real manager or an agent. So um, that's how I feel about that. I do recommend you have to love yourself. That's really how you're going to get ahead. I love the sound of my voice, so getting into voice acting was a natural for me. And I was lucky enough to have the sound engineering skills from college, so that I could set up my little home studio here, and I know exactly which audio interface to buy, which DAW to use. I use Logic Pro. I have a lot of isotope plugins. I highly recommend those for noise cleanup because we all live in, well, most of us live in this noisy city. Um, and I was lucky enough to have that education to guide me into, I had to do something, man. I had to, be creative somehow. And I was shooting a bunch of sketches with my comedy group, but it was getting tough. Like the remote ideas, the remote shooting ideas we had, it was like getting a little bit, so we kind of stopped. So I needed to do something else. Like if you're not acting, that's it. Like then you're not acting. You're not working on your craft or career, and someone else is going to step in and they're gonna beat you. That's kind of the. I grew up with a Russian swim teacher, and she just made us feel horrible. So now I have this idea in my
Yeah, just
head that I
her
have to work
voice
so hard. Yeah, like if I
or
don't do my
his
flip
voice.
turn, I have to do 100 squats. So in my head, I just had this idea. Yeah, I have to work, otherwise someone else is going to overtake me, and that's absolutely true in Hollywood.
And you brought up so many great things there. It's that there's also that competitive spirit that you have that also, is a driver. And I think we see a lot of people on, through this industry or whatever. And you notice a lot of people say that they want to do things, but, you ask them a year later and they are still talking about the things that they want to do. Like, simple things. Like you're saying,
Yes.
start a little studio at home, or, I'm going to get myself a microphone someday, or,
Yes, yeah, and I mentioned it before, but I heard a lot of that coming from acting classes, and it's great to be in class. I highly doubt that the best actors of our generation, like De Niro and Meryl Streep, I bet they still go to class. So class is very important. I'm not knocking class, but it's easy to get stuck in the rut of being in a class, especially when there's no end goal. Most LA acting coaches don't have an end goal. After usually the third or fourth month, if you're still in the class, they'll start to repeat things that you've heard, and it's just like, oh, you're on autopilot now. So I loved my teacher, Dmitry Marinov. He was great. He was in the Green Book. He played the cellist in the Green Book alongside Mahershala Ali, and I loved his class. It was a 6-week course. There was actually an end in sight. Um, so it's easy to get stuck in a complacent area, but if you just, what I've always wanted to succeed, right? And I've always wondered, like, man, how did they do this in the 70s, 80s? They had to like mail, like you had to really depend on your manager or agent back then, right? Because you had to
yeah.
mail in stuff to the studios and they would have, they would take a look. But now it's just, man, we have so much power in our hands that we don't need a middleman, but unfortunately the middlemen aren't giving up their position that easily. So,
Yeah. I mean, there's
um,
definitely, I think on that part, there's definitely certain levels that require, having that element, because, when you're negotiating huge contracts, if you're the artist, you got to be loved. But if you're the
right.
negotiator, nobody wants to deal with the negotiator. So
That's absolutely right. And my manager has expressed to me, hey man, let me do that for you. It's like your job is to be the cheerleader, right? Because
yeah,
we get a gig in the mail, right? And we have to be like, oh man, I love this project so much. It sounds so awesome. We're gonna do such a good job. Can you just send the contract to my manager, please? Don't let the money be in your hands. But it's hard to navigate that when you're managing yourself, right? So sometimes you have to be kind of headstrong about it. Like I still have some voiceover payments, and it's been like 2-3 months now, and I have to keep emailing them like, hey, just checking in on the payment, which sucks because I just want to be the artist, right? But then again, I want to manage my own career right now. So
yeah, for sure. And there's you touched on so many great ideas here. And one other
thank you.
idea that you brought up that I think is so powerful is this idea that you're able to transfer this knowledge that you had from your music school to, and knowing all the technical elements of sound and everything. So
Yeah.
that's hugely powerful. And so in understanding that, was that transition more organic, like, oh, I have these skills, so I'm just falling into this place? Or is it like, I got these skills and I know it'd work here, so let me do this? Or does that make sense? Like, how did
Yeah,
you fall into it?
absolutely. Well, it came out of necessity, really. I just knew I needed to. get working again, after May, June, I was like, oh man, I got to get back into acting somehow. And so I was really just fortunate enough to have those skills. And what's nice about acting is that, people are always like, oh, how do I get better at acting? Some people suggest, oh, I watch films or movies or TV and stuff like that. But I really don't think it's that. I really think acting, if you want to be a great actor, you have to be a great human being, and you have to just be a great observer of life. And I just happened to luck out with, the sound engineering skills. But, if you have skills in anything else, Hollywood is looking for special skills. Guitar is what got me into, is what got me my SAG-E status. Um, and what's so crazy about that? I had my friend audition with me too. He's a flute player, and the role was for a, a funny Irish Hobbit cover band for Tim Heidecker, who's this crazy Adult Swim comedian. And what's so crazy is that he's not even an actor, and he got SAG-E too because his special skill was flute. So, you have a guy like me come in, 4 years, like, I want to get into SAG. And then this guy's like, oh, I don't even care about acting. And he gets a SAG-E status too. So like so what I want to say is that it sounds cliche, but it's really who you know. And that guy knew me, and I knew him. And I knew that if we auditioned together, we would get the role, and we did. So,
Beautiful.
yeah. So,
Man, well, I'm guess did he thank you, or was he just like, oh
well,
that's
he likes
cool,
that guy.
saggy.
He likes Tim Heidecker too, but yeah, he doesn't even realize the scope of it. And his sister was like, "Don't be dumb," like, because she works at Oracle and they work with SAG, and she's like, "Don't be dumb, like, you could be an actor." But he doesn't really want to do that. So,
Oh
I
wow,
just
so
thought it's
he
so funny, because
that
some people
is
work so hard to
uh-huh.
get to break into the industry, and it's this guy just happened to know me. So,
That's
um,
great, man. You're a
but
career maker.
Hey, but to go back to the original point, it's who you know, and it's your skills, it's your special skills, and I happen to have sound engineering as a special skill, and that allowed me to transition into voice acting pretty smoothly. But any special skill you have, I'm sure they're looking for it somewhere in Hollywood, somewhere.
Fantastic. And you've been in the game for a while. Here for
Yeah,
4 or 5 years plus,
yeah,
and you came in with this knowledge of like sound backgrounds. You got a great voice.
yeah,
You're awesome at networking, and now you've got this studio behind you. So for
yes,
and so clearly, like, it takes many years to like reach that level. But for
absolutely,
anybody, starting, if you had the opportunity to like mentor them or share like some tidbits of advice, do they
yeah.
need everything that you're doing, or how can they get how can they ramp up if they're willing to listen and take your advice?
So, well, what I recommend is, I touched on this before, but if you're starting out, this is a business, right? It's not, it could be a hobby to some, and I've met a lot of extras on set where it's definitely just a hobby and just some extra money to get. But if you really love the craft of acting, then you have to treat this like a business, right? So you have to invest in your business, and don't be afraid to invest in yourself. When I see $750 for a class, I'm like, God damn it. But then I see it's being taught by Terry Berland, who's one of the best VO acting teachers in the game. Then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is great, because I'll just make this money back eventually. I took headshots with Dana Patrick, and I think that was 750 for 4 shots. I only used 2 or 3 anyway. But I made that money back, dude, in like 2, 3 months. I knew it because I believed in myself. So my recommendation, starting out, believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. That's a huge point. Get on all the casting sites, Actors Access, Backstage, LA Casting. You could get on Casting Frontier, but at that point, all those gigs start like circling each other, like they start appearing on the same sites. Get on all those sites. Start building a reel. If you can't build a reel, shoot something with your friends. There are so many fake scripts out there online. I could look up male on male dialogue, and I could find a great dialogue scene, and I could shoot that with my friend. The people love making excuses. Oh, I don't have an agent yet. I don't have a manager yet. No, you can do it, man. It's all in our hands. We have the power in our hands, and it's so incredible because I have only paid, like, my manager and agents who I've had these 4 or 5 years. I've only paid them like a couple $100 because they don't book my gigs. I do. So if you want it, go out and get it, because you can get it. When it comes to like joining SAG and then that part of the career, I'm not there yet, so I can't give advice on that. But as a this is, you can make this a really awesome part-time hustle and almost full-time career as someone who's non-union. It's possible because I did it myself. I just wanted it really bad and I applied every day. And I got the gigs over over the other actors. So,
Mhm. And that's amazing. I love that you're saying that you don't have to, have that you don't have to be in the union to like start working today, to get into it, to, start making a living. And, I think that just speaks to this idea of just taking your career into your own hands in so many ways. And it's so powerful. And you also meant, oh, you look like you're about to say something.
oh no, I was gonna agree with you 100%. And what sometimes people don't want to take their own career into their own hands because they're like, well, what do I do? Well, guess what? Nobody knows what they're doing, and they're just offering you advice, and they're just seeing if the shit when it hits the wall is it gonna stick?
Right.
That's it. Like that's what everyone in this town is doing, man. And maybe some people know a little bit more than others, but what I've seen is that everyone just doesn't really know what to do. But if you take the first step and if you take action, then people will start to notice. I remember I
Mhm.
booked a gig on Backstage. It was a Raising Cane's Industrial, and it paid very well. I wish it was a national. That would have been awesome. But I love that fast food brand. And I remember I got the gig, and 10 minutes later, I sent the self tape in. And the guy was like, wow, thank you for the really quick reply. We're going to get back to you in a few days. And he said, all right, man, you booked the gig. And I asked him on set, I'm like, hey, so what made me book the gig? He's like, well, you responded really quickly and your headshots were just on point and your self-tape was great and funny. So we had no other choice but you. So I remember that, you know? And
Yeah.
why was that? It's because I wanted it really bad. I didn't need it, but I wanted it really bad and I let them know. And I took the initiative and I just applied for it immediately, you know? So things like that go a long way in this town, especially when everyone's very flaky here. They don't send stuff in on time. They don't come to set in on time, you know? So if you're just one of those people that is just a go-getter, people react to that. I really do think they do.
Incredible. And so you've touched on some great things here. Investing in yourself was one that
Yes.
I'd like to hear more about, and I think would be very helpful. And also this other area of, not just being in the right place at the right time, but, that timing of managing your time, making sure that, you're prepared to receive those opportunities and to deliver on, what the goods are. So, very good point. And this idea of investing in yourself. So,
Yeah.
what does that mean to you? Like, how does someone decide, like, oh, what is investing in myself versus just like, I'm splurging on something? How do you
Okay.
know? Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you invest in yourself, you start to gain more either material things like maybe a new guitar or like some new acting lessons or whatever. You get something in return, and and there is a return. That's the point. So when you invest in yourself, there is a return, and you trust yourself that there's going to be a return. If I was like a hesitant actor, I wouldn't be really willing to spend like what $750 on headshots. Like, oh, that's a lot. Like maybe I could get $250 ones, right? But then what if the $750 headshots would have got you in the door and would have paid for it immediately in 2, 3 months like it did for me? And then after that, you have an amazing high quality product available to you for free, right? And that's just part of your brand. That's just part of your business. It's like owning a warehouse and getting more and better equipment over and over again, right? So that's what investing in yourself really means.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be hesitant to splurge on something, even when I see like some noise cleanup software deals online. I don't think twice anymore. I'm just like, oh, will this help me with my career? Absolutely. Boom. Click. Done. 60 bucks, 80
Amazing.
bucks, 200 bucks, doesn't matter. Because you know what? I'm going to make that money back with one gig or two maybe. And after that, I just have this new thing right in my arsenal. So it's
And
about building your arsenal, right?
yeah, and you touched on something I think that's even deeper, as opposed to, just looking at these as material things, to realize that, excuse me, that if you are if you're prepared, if you have that confidence and belief in your career, you're not going to be sitting back and saying, "Ooh, well, is it gonna work?" Because the moment you start to have that doubt, is the moment that you start to lose compared to, someone that has the experience, that knows how they're gonna, get that return on their investment in themselves. So I really like that you brought that up.
Yes,
And
absolutely. Yes. In LA, there are a lot of people here who might be, well, before the pandemic, in my experience, there was some people here who would be a little bit jealous of your success, as a, um, oh, as an actor who doesn't really rely on their manager or agent to get them jobs. So there's a little bit of jealousy, um, that goes with that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. What was the?
yeah, well, this idea of, when you're investing in yourself, you're not like, if you don't feel confident in what you're doing, you're not going to invest
Yes.
in yourself.
Oh, yes. I was gonna say, don't let the people bring you down. Don't let naysayers bring you down when you're sharing your goals and your dreams and things you want to do. Some people are like, "Oh, well, how are you gonna do that?" And like those people, like push them away. That's not cool. They should be like asking, "Oh, how can I help you with that?" Instead
Mhm.
of naysaying on you. So you just have to be really confident in yourself. And I've always been 100%. I've always been maybe sometimes too confident in myself. And then the big gig comes my way, the big self tape, and I don't get it, but I've always liked my confidence because people like confident people. And most casting agents, they want you to get the job, right? So why wouldn't you walk in the room looking like and feeling like $1 million? Um, just be confident and personable, and you will make it far. Don't be petty and jealous.
Right on. Beautiful message. And also, so as I'm listening, the one of the biggest questions is, you've spoken about so many great things in terms of, that career development, that self-management and all of that. And
Yeah.
also, can you give a little bit of insight, just into like the day in the life of a successful audition, or like a project that you booked? How do you, prepare yourself? What type of how to, for anyone who wants to
Sure.
know?
Okay, this is gonna be a two-parter. I'm gonna make it quick though. It's
Cool.
two-parter because I have to do one for acting, I have to do one for voice acting. We're gonna do the voice acting one first. So when you're a voice actor, you're sitting at home. It's, I don't know, 8, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. You're just chilling on the couch doing whatever. And then you see on your email, voice thing comes in. Uh-oh, run to the studio. I already have Logic Pro set up to record. All I have to do, because the lesser steps you have to do something, the more interested you'll still be. So if I had to set up every time, I would begin to hate voice acting because it's like I have to set up every time. So my studio is just ready to go. It's always plugged into Logic Pro. So I get up, I read the script, I do it, I immediately send it out. Boom. And then the waiting process begins. But you do that about 15, 20 times a day, right? So you wake up with like 5 to 8 to start, and then over the course of the day, you get like 5, 10 more. And you do that 5 times a week, Monday to Friday. And eventually you book 1 or 2 gigs a week, and it starts to add up. Um, and then with acting, of course, it's a little bit different, but you get the sides, and you're so excited to read them, and then in your head you think, oh, who am I going to audition with, right? Because I want to audition with somebody awesome for this role. You think about that, you let it sit with you for maybe like a week or two, and then you bust out the self tape, um, and then you just wait. And my number one tip is just forget the gig. Once you hit send on the self tape or you click submit on the voice acting sites, just forget it. It never existed. Because then you're going to get a pleasant surprise when they email you back saying, hey, you're invited to our callback. Otherwise, you're just going to get so sick and tired of the constant rejection. I mean, like I said, man, like, I do the voice acting like 20 times a day, and maybe I book 1 or 2 gigs a week. So that's 100 gigs. That's like 98 gigs I'm not booking, right? And if I had any sympathy, if I had any like emotion for those gigs, I'd probably be beating myself up a lot more.
Yeah.
So I, oh, and another tip for day in the life: don't think, just do. If you start thinking, oh, I'm not right for this role, that's it. You've already ruined it, man. You've already ruined it. Just do it. Just go out and do it. Oh, they're looking for a SAG actor, whatever. Just do it. Just go and do it. Just be who you are. They want to see who you are. They're rooting for you. They always are rooting for you. Those are my tips.
Amazing. I feel so inspired now, truly.
Woo!
And here's one thing that like I'm just like this is amazing because you shared exactly how you do it, the exact step by step that you do basically. And what I
Yeah.
think is so powerful is when you're talking about the business, you've got literally got a system like working for you. You got the system and this process. And I don't think, well, I know that doesn't come with just, a couple days or even a year of experience in the industry. It comes with, years of putting into effort. So for, you listening, just, I think to comprehend that, to is super powerful to realize that how effective the system is, years and years of, honing in.
It's years of this habit. It's just years of getting up and doing the castings. And some days I feel great, and some days I really don't. But if I know that I don't submit anything that day, I'm not working for myself. And if I was an employee at my own brand and I owned the brand, I wouldn't want my employees not working. They just show up and they don't work. So I've after what is it, like 27 days that something becomes a habit. I mean, it's just a habit for me now. When I don't see anything in my inbox, I'm like, oh, okay, that's because I haven't been doing the work. And then I get on myself. I'm not too hard on myself, but I do get on myself sometimes. I'm like, you gotta put in the hard work. Um, it used to be hard work, but now it's just smart work. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly. I look at the price tag. I look at the role. I look at the description. Is the casting agency legit? I can do that very fast now for like 20, 30 auditions a day. It's just time. It's just time.
That's phenomenal. And, this idea of like being almost like an athlete that can spot like, where a person's running, decide like how to move and like who to
Yes.
throw the ball to. But like you're able to spot those things just from that experience. So that's wonderful. And, this has been an amazing podcast. So I want to thank you for jumping on here. If someone was listening to this, what would be the best way to find your content or see some of your work or, just reach out to you?
Well, I'm not taking a huge break on social media, but I do have the socials. I'm on Instagram at Maku Music. That's Maku Music. I post funny stuff and some music things every now and then. I've been kind of focusing on myself now, but I want to get back with the socials eventually in the new year. And I'm on TikTok as well. You can find me at Michael.Ursu. I got 22,000 followers on there, so pretty big deal. But like I said, I've been kind of focusing just more on making the living rather than putting out a bunch of content. But I definitely want to get back on that grind soon. So
Yeah. And that's amazing too. Cause realizing that you are what's working versus just putting stuff on social media, so.
yeah, because if you're putting stuff on social media, you have to have a game plan. Like you can't just put it out randomly. I've learned that with my band. We can't just do stuff randomly. Everything has to have like a deadline. I remember releasing a single of mine called "Send My Love." I go by the artist name Maku, and I made like a countdown, like a 10-day countdown. I posted for 10 days, and then I released the song. And I had a few friends say to me like, "Wow, I was really with you on that journey." So I'm like, "Oh, cool, great. Well, I guess every time I release a song, I have to now, make like a mini marketing campaign for it."
Yeah.
So, and the stuff on TikTok, I don't want to be a TikTok star, but I do believe that it's important as an actor, or shall I say, an entertainer, to be everywhere, and to entertain people. And I did entertain people on that platform for a little bit, so I don't regret that. But it's important to be everywhere, but it's also important to have a game plan. It's like, okay, how many times a week am I going to release stuff? What am I going to release? How are people going to perceive this? I'm always thinking about stuff like that, but then usually I get overwhelmed and then I don't do anything. So I have to get out of that mindset, So it's overwhelming, man. It's overwhelming.
All right, fantastic. And all of Maku Music's information is going to be in the description. So check that out. Check
Big
them out.
Hammett. Hell yes.
And thank you and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Yes. Have a wonderful day, people. Bye-bye.